Baelsar's wall completed the Garlean consolidation of their new territory. The proud highland state of Alimgo had been consumed. Whilst the Eorzean states did their best to wish away the Garlean threat, and the Black Wolf licked at his wounds inflicted by Midgardsormr at the Battle of Silvertear Skies, it was a group of Sharlayans, a handful of Archons that called themselves the Circle of Knowing, under the tutelage of Louisoix le Veilleur, that proved the greatest ally of the Alamigan resistance during this time. Among this group was Eda Hext, daughter of one of the rebel leaders which toppled the King of Ruin. In the 14 years since fleeing Girabanya with her younger sister, she had been taken in by the Sharlayans and formally educated at their studium. In 1571, only a year before the events of 1.0, the Circle of Knowing infiltrated Girabanya in order to facilitate the escape of would-be defectors from Alimgo. Whether through poor fortune or foul play, their plans were interrupted by the Garleans, and many of the defectors were killed before the party escaped back into the Twelveswood. Eda Hext was apparently overwhelmed and killed when she turned back to rescue a small girl. She was survived by the younger Lys Hext, whom decided to quite literally take up the mantle and even the name of her beloved sister, a secret which her dear friend and mentor, Papalimo Totolimo, agreed to cover up. The next and last notable thrust the Resistance ventured before the Calamity was made in collaboration with members of the Path of the 12, and even the fledgling would-be Warrior of Light, despite the protests of antecedent Minfilia, and it ended in catastrophic failure. The Garleans had begun creeping back into central Eorzea. Nael Van Darnus and the 7th Imperial Legion had arrived in Alimgo to reinforce the 14th, and together they made a number of small-scale incursions across the realm to secure land for castrums and other mysterious purposes. One such garrison had been set up at Silvertear in Mordona, and the Resistance here intended to infiltrate, commandeer an airship, and use it to assault Alimgo. The unlikelihood of a single airship being able to breach the defenses of the Garlean-occupied city notwithstanding, the Resistance fighters did not make it even that far. In the mists beneath the ruined Agrius, they were ambushed and slaughtered by Baelsar himself. The future Warrior of Light escaped only by the diversion created by the Circle of Knowing. Following this defeat, and the realm-wide scramble to undermine Project Meteor once Nael Van Darnus' true intentions were revealed to the Eorzeans by Baelsar himself, wanting to save and secure the realm from its own barbarism, not destroy it, the exhausted Resistance took a back seat. In the years following the Calamity, Eorzea's resources were committed to rebuilding, and the Alamigan refugees huddled outside the walls and cities were among the worst affected. At the same time, all was silent behind Baelsar's wall, as a war of succession brewed in the Garlean capital. While the resistance waned, however, a fire was lit under the old friend of Raubon, Ilberd Fear. He had managed to save his family and escape when Alimgo fell 15 years prior, and had found work as an adventurer and sellsword so that he could support them in central Eorzea ever since. But the raging fires caused by the fall of Dalamud took even this from him, killing his family and destroying the new home he had labored to build. With nothing left to lose, he committed himself to the sleepless pursuit of Alamigan liberation. Bitter that his old comrade Raubon had apparently abandoned the cause, Ilberd threw his lot in with Lord Lolorito, the wealthiest and perhaps most influential man in the realm, and agreed to do his dirty work in exchange for a vague promise to commit resources to the resistance. It was in this capacity that he joined the idealistic Alphino le Veilleur's Crystal Braves as a double agent, and transplanted Teleji Adeleji's plot to assassinate the Sultana with Lolorito's own to foil it. Teleji framed the Warrior of Light, but Raubon immediately construed his intentions and murdered Teleji. When he turned on Lolorito, however, Ilberd took his arm and beat him into submission, after which Raubon was imprisoned. Ilberd wanted to see the supposed traitor to Alimgo executed, and when Lolorito refused, he took this as indicative that the monetarist would never actually support Ilberd's ultimate cause. Ilberd kidnapped the prisoner, and along with the traitorous Crystal Braves whose loyalty he had secured with promises of wealth and influence in his new Alimgo, he took Raubon to Halatali, where he planned to carry out the execution without interruption. When he was interrupted and foiled by the Warrior of Light and company, Ilberd evidently took stock of the powerful enemies he had made and disappeared underground to build his new resistance in secret. Realizing that the spirit of Alamigan resistance had all but broken, Ilberd conceived a new identity that could allow him to remain incognito, whilst unifying and rallying his disenchanted countrymen under an icon of blazing patriotism, the Griffin, symbol of the royal house of Alimgo and sigil of the nation's flag, hooded and masked, dressed in the regal purple of their divine guardian Rhalga. As the Griffin, Ilberd founded an aggressively militant faction of Almegan resistance fighters named the Masks, and allegedly set to skirmishing with the Garleans with no shortage of ferocity and tactical flair. Among his followers was an otherwise unremarkable refugee named Galien, whom had long struggled for survival in the hamlet of Quarrymill whilst being plagued by the Greenwrath. Ilberd saw talent in Galien as a public speaker, and assigned him as his decoy. Galien appeared as the Griffin at recruitment rallies that caught the notice of Lys and Papalimo, whom had been hiding in Little Alimgo and aiding the resistance after they had been framed as part of the Ul'dan conspiracy. At these rallies, the decoy Griffin spoke of a new and sadistic viceroy that tormented their countrymen, and he claimed to possess a power that could see them reclaim Girabanya, if only the refugees united behind him. In their investigation, Lys and Papalimo discovered that the Masks had been receiving shipments of crystals stolen from Ishgard. Deeply concerned that the Griffin was preparing to summon a primal, and reunited with their friend the Warrior of Light, they set out to unmask him and ascertain his true intentions. When they confronted the decoy, he recognized the Warrior of Light as his hero, one who had saved his life previously when he was poisoned and dying in the South Shroud, and he gladly confessed that the Masks were using the crystals to trade with the Amaljar in exchange for their assistance in the fight against the Empire. Revealing that he was little more than a mouthpiece, it seemed that not even Galien knew the identity of their true leader. Their true leader, on the other hand, would hardly need a cache of crystals for his hidden purpose. Elidibus had gifted him with the eyes of Nidhogg, retrieved by the Warriors of Darkness, and it was not long before Ilberd was prepared to set wheels in motion which would rapidly lead the Eorzean alliance to war. A resistance scout staggered into the Scion's headquarters at the Rising Stones and reported that the Griffin was poised to strike at Baelsar's wall from the less fortified eastern approach, having tunneled under the border. The unwaveringly trusted Scions brought this news to the Alliance leaders, as Ilberd no doubt intended, and they all tentatively agreed to mobilize a united force to the border to hold and prepare for the eventuality that the fighting might spill into the East Shroud. Unbeknownst to them, however, the Masks which infiltrated and assaulted the wall did so in the stolen uniforms of the Eorzean Grand Companies. The appearance of this bold attack on the Garlean installation and of the army of the Eorzean alliance amassed before the wall belied the truth that it was performed by Ilberd's terrorists. It seemed for all the world that the Eorzean alliance had made a declaration of war. This was not the pinnacle of Ilberd's plan, however. Even as the Warrior of Light moved to intercept the Griffin, it became clear that he intended neither to hold the wall nor to push beyond it into Girabanya. Ilberd had orchestrated the wholesale slaughter of his own soldiers as part of a ritual, fueled by the eyes of Nidhogg, to summon a terrible primal of distilled rage and despair. Having sufficiently stalled the Warrior of Light, Ilberd allowed his own suicide to complete the ritual. Only the apparent sacrifice of Archon Papalimo made to seal the embryonic primal allowed the Scions to escape the hellscape atop Baelsar's wall and stall its emergence for long enough for the Alliance to form a desperate plan. The only attempt made by Garlemald to approach the primal's cocoon was met with the immediate destruction of an entire warship by a piercing lance of light. It was clear that no solution would be viable of a less extreme nature than that recommended by Nero Tolskeva, former tribunus of the 14th Imperial Legion, to reactivate the ancient Allagan icon hunter Omega weapon, discovered under Cartano Flats, which had originally imprisoned Bahamut over 5,000 years ago. The primal emerged from its prison, appearing to Doman scouts of a striking resemblance to a dragon of their mythology, Shinryu. Omega immediately engaged, and after a short battle, primal and weapon both disappeared without a trace, but not before obliterating a vast swathe of Girabanya below. With Papalimo's ethereal cocoon destroyed, the last traces of his ether evaporated, and so too did Lys's marks of the Archon, which he had simulated to falsify her identity as Ida. Taking this as a sign, the youngest daughter of Hext, the legendary Alamigan rebel, cast off the disguise she had worn for over 6 years and decided to finally embrace her own fate, not as a Sharlayan Archon, but as a revolutionary, like her father. The Eorzean alliance quickly moved to occupy Baelsar's wall under the command of Pippin Tarupin and his surrogate father Ralban al-Din, having taken the tragic lesson of his old friend Ilberd to heart. Even now they prepare for Garlemald's retribution, knowing the Empire will not long stumble over the carnage caused by Shinryu and Omega upon their side of the border. The new Viceroy, Xenus Ye Galvus, is reportedly a far crueler man than his predecessor. And unlike Baelsar, whom launched the Ultima weapon upon Eorzea whilst the rest of Garlemald faced civil war, Galvus has the entire resources of the Empire at his disposal. After 20 years of Garlean occupation and 15 with not a sight glimpsed of Girabanya beyond Baelsar's wall, who knows for certain what it is we'll find when we cross the border. What of this curious piece of geography, for instance? Was this the path of the meteor that led the Highlanders to Girabanya? The result of some Imperial weapons test? Or was it caused mere days ago by the clashing of Shinryu and Omega? And what of the Alamigan people? As a free nation, they suffered terribly through most of their history. Would they not be happier under the Imperial yoke? Or would the brutality of Baelsar's successor be enough to shatter their sense of security? We've been told that this new character Fordola will be something of a case study for the Alamigan youths born under Imperial occupation, and I for one will follow her with great interest. Will Lys fulfill the dreams of her father and rise to the occasion as a leader of the resistance? Will Ralban have to make a choice between serving his beloved Sultana and committing himself to the revolution? Will Vidargelt, the last fist of Rhalga, succeed in rebuilding his order, and will he finally reveal himself as Theodred, last heir to the royal house? If he does so, will his countrymen rally to him, or will they condemn him by association to the King of Ruin? And speaking of Theodoric, will we get to fight an undead skeleton King of Ruin in catacombs beneath Alimgo? And is Eda Hext, the real Eda Hext, truly dead? Let me know what you think. A storm of blood approaches fast, hell's open, heavens weep. For no one's soul doth lie beyond the measure of his reach. I look forward to seeing you all storming into Girabanya, and until then, like and sub for more. I'm Ethys, and thanks for watching.